Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, my dear viewers and listeners, to another episode in our channel, YouTube channel, EDC Kuwait Educational. Today's topic may be a little controversial, may not be, but it's a topic that has to be talked about. Some of these tough and controversial topics, some of us tend to shy away from them. But that's not a good thing. Some of these controversial topics need to be talked about. They need to be discussed so we can all have a better understanding of one another, and that leads to peace and coexisting with each other. This topic today is about divinity. Some, they associate Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, with divinity. Why? Because he performed miracles. There are some Christians, for example, Unitarians, and all Muslims, we point out that Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him, indeed performed miracles, but it was by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not through any divine powers of himself. In the Bible, in the book of Acts, chapter 2, verse 22, it says, Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested by God to you by miracles, wonders, and signs, which God did through him in your midst, as you yourselves also know. In conformity with both the Bible and the Holy Quran, Muslims contend that the miracles of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, were performed by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the Holy Quran, it states in chapter 5, verse 110, then will Allah say, O Jesus, the son of Mary, recount my favor to you and to your mother. Behold, I strengthen you with the Holy Spirit, so that you can speak to the people in childhood and also in maturity. Behold, I taught you the book and the wisdom, the Torah and the gospel. And behold, you made out of clay, as it were the figure of a bird, by my leave. You breathed into it, and it became a bird by my leave. And you heal those born blind and the lepers by my leave. And behold, you brought forth the dead by my leave. By my leave. The leave of the power and the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what we mean in Islam. This is what we believe in Islam. This is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran. Our perspective, the Islamic perspective, is that miracles can be God-given signs of prophethood, but they don't imply divinity. Hadiths, or narration, words and deeds by the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, account numerous miracles. The science of hadith is a lot different than some of the collections in the New Testament. You know, so Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, the seminar is perhaps one of the most objective and sincere attempts of a council of Christian scholars to determine the authenticity of the recorded acts of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. Yet, the methodology that they use involves casting votes. 2,000 years after the ministry of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, nearly 200 scholars, they're formulating a collective Christian opinion regarding the reliability of the quotes and historical reports of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, by casting colored beads. Think about this for a second. When we're judging the authenticity of something 2,000 years later. For example, if they cast a red bead, it means that Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, said it or something very close to it. Pink probably means something said like it, although his words have been lost in transmission. The gray, well, these are probably not even his words, but the ideas are close to Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. And if they cast black beads, it means that Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, didn't even say it at all. These words, maybe they represent the Christian community as a whole. So, the historical record keeping for these type of things is very relevant. Why? Because when a person hears a story, even if it's credible or non-credible, one of the first questions that they usually ask is, where did you hear that? That's only reasonable. We need to hear facts. We need to know facts. Where did you get this info? Who's the source for this information? So, the Holy Quran and the Ahadith, the traditions, how they go about determining what's correct, what's weak, what's fabricated. It's a process. It's simple. Miracles occurred around the Prophet ﷺ, peace and blessings be upon him. But they are no less numerous and no less impressive than Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, who was also a prophet in Islam. And they were witnessed by a large amount, a large group, a large number of people. There were also miracles that were performed by Moses, the prophet Moses, peace and blessings be upon him, Elijah, but that doesn't imply divinity. Now, let me give you just a few examples of what I mean. In the Bible, Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, fed thousands with a few pieces of fish and a couple of loaves of bread. Elijah fed 100 people with 20 barley loaves and a few ears of corn. That's in 2 Kings, chapter 4, verse 44. He granted a widow such an abundant flow of oil from a jar that she was able to pay off her debts, save her sons from slavery, and live off the profits. 2 Kings 4, verses 1 through 7. So, as you can see, Elijah performed great deeds. But that doesn't mean that he was divine. Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, healed the lepers. Likewise, Elijah healed. 2 Kings chapter 5, 7 through 14. For that matter, the disciples were bidding to such service in the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 8. So, what does that make them? If that's the criteria for being divine, what does it make him? Jesus cured a blind man. Peace and blessings be upon him. Elijah not only struck his enemies blind, but he restored vision to the blind through prayer. 2 Kings chapter 6. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessings be upon him, reportedly cured blindness through prayer as well. Jesus raised the dead. Peace and blessings be upon him. But Elijah beat him to that. Having raised 2 children from the dead, 1 Kings 17, 2 Kings 4. So the disciples also did the same thing. So again, my question to you, does that make them divine? Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, walked on water. But had he been around at the time of Moses, peace and blessings be upon him, he wouldn't have had to do that. Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, cast out the devils. In the book of Matthew, so did the disciples. So did the sons of Pharisees. So, again, my question, do miracles make you divine? From an Islamic point of view, no. Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, performed these acts by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, was a prophet in Islam. I hope this has shed some light on the topic of divinity of the prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, from an Islamic point of view. As always, send comments, emails, questions of things that you'd like to hear or know about from an Islamic point of view. As always, I'd like to leave you in the safety of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying, Fi aman Allah. Assalamu alaikum.